So this go around was a little bit of a unique piece. I just kind of stumbled upon the file and figured it looked cool, it looked fun, so I figured, what the heck, let's do it. This file is from the Netflix show Arcane / League of Legends game. It is Jinx's Fishbones Rocket Launcher. This piece has been different than the other ones I've done in the past, in that it was more of kind of like a model kit than a big piece that I had to put the pieces together. So you see here lots of little pieces. I actually really enjoyed doing this. Like I said, it was kind of like a model kit, so printed all the pieces before I really started assembling. I wanted to make sure I had everything printed because I wasn't 100% sure which part went where, and so once I got it all printed up, then I could start to piece it together almost like a puzzle. Once I had everything printed, then I had to kind of do the post-processing, take off the supports, which, by the way, taking off the supports and they all just come like this, chef's kiss. And then I also needed to use my deburring tool to kind of clean up the edges. Once everything was kind of post-processed, then I could start assembly. Part of the file actually had these little pegs to help align everything. The way that they printed didn't always fit in them, so sometimes I kind of had to make do without them, or just maybe with part of them. But some of the pieces printed a little bit rough depending on the orientation, so I used super glue with accelerator to fill in those areas and kind of smooth them out. I think it worked out really well. I don't know if it's the most cost-effective thing than using like a spot putty or something, but the downside of using super glue and accelerator is that it bonds fast, and so on this particular piece I didn't have it lined up quick enough and it locked into place incorrectly oriented, and it was basically just a waste of a piece at that point. One technique I like to use when trying to fill in seam lines is I'll put the spot putty down and then I'll kind of tap it. It helps it, in my opinion, get into the seam, but then also kind of bulks up the area, so to speak, so that when I sand it, sometimes with the seam line, even after you use spot putty, you'll have to do multiple coats of spot putty, just because as you sand it, the seam will still be visible. I feel like when I kind of do this technique, it works, I think, better than not. It also just could be in my head that I feel like it's working, but that is something I'll do. I'll kind of tap along the seam with the spot putty. Once you use spot putty, then the next step is sanding. At this point, I was filling in some areas, and my boss came in and started helping me find some areas that needed work. To be honest, she's the best. She's my favorite person ever, and she does a really good job at helping kind of fine-tune some of these things that I may miss. Once I had everything put together and the seam line's pretty good, I went to my favorite filler primer. And again, back to the sanding. On this one, I actually started using a little small file that I had randomly, and that actually worked really well as I tried to clean out the scratched areas or just the overall details. Once I had it looking like I wanted to with the filler primer, I laid a black coat down over the whole piece. I started with a gloss because I thought that that would look good as a base for a metallic finish. And if I'd went back with another spray paint to do those, I think that would have been a good option. But where I hand painted this, it made the hand painting really tricky with the gloss. So on a lot of these pieces, I actually went back with a more of a flat black paint to coat it, just to make it easier to do the additional layers. For this blue, I pretty much just mixed up different blues, and I think blue, black, gray, a tiny little bit of purple. So there wasn't really a specific blue that I used. I just tried to get it to match the reference pictures that I could find to get it close to the color that I wanted. Once I had that, I started with a base of a gray that I was then going to layer up to more of a kind of a silvery metallic color. Apologize that these shots don't seem to be very in focus. I think they're focused more on my hair than anything. Once I had the base down of the gray, then I went back with a silver color and added that to the top to give it that metallic look. I tried to give it a little bit of a grain texture. I'm not sure if it really worked out, but that's what I did. To these pieces, I used a kind of a burnt gold and just added that to those pieces that were supposed to be the gold color. I really liked the aged look. It added, I feel like, a little bit of character to the piece than if it was just the straight up gold. To these copper pieces, I think the color was aged penny or something like that. I didn't get any shots of me doing any highlights to the black, but as you can see in the different shots I did, just kind of give it almost like a cast iron look on some of those black metal areas, and then added highlights to the silver as well. This is just more of that gold being laid down. Anytime I do gold, I like to have a base of black. Really any metallic, I like to have a base of black, but especially gold. I feel like the gold is just a lot deeper and richer if it has a black base coat. As I'd done to different parts of the body, to the silver, I did a dry brush of lighter silver and just really hit the corners and the highlights and really give it that aged look. as you can see right here, the difference between before without any of the highlights touched up, and then on that other side, the difference that it makes when you do add that highlight really gives it character. Here I am adding the blue kind of lightning bolt to the eyes, which you can see I went back and added gold to that tooth and the eye, same thing with the other side. This is just a light blue that I had. I felt like it matched pretty well to the reference photo. This laid on pretty well. I didn't really need to do too many coats of this, but on the next step, when I add the hot pink to the top, it was really translucent. So once I kind of got the overall shape that I wanted, I actually went through with more of a pastel pink to give me a little bit better base that wasn't as translucent. And then that way I went back over with the top with the hot pink, and it made it pop just a little bit better and not be so, like I said, translucent. In the show, the rocket launcher emits kind of a blue light as it fires, so I wanted to add that to the prop. So I drilled some holes into the top of it and then laced some an LED strip through the rocket launcher itself. Once I had it pulled through, I needed to figure out exactly how I wanted to position it to give it the best look with the underglow. I actually painted the under part of the shield top piece as a chrome to help reflect it. I thought that it would help to have the light shining onto that to have the best look. I ended up deciding to just adhere it to the shield itself and have the light shine down onto the different pieces. The remaining part of the strip I wanted to have as kind of a light ball thingy coming out of the rocket's mouth. So I looped it around the hinge of the lower jaw and kind of balled it up. However, once it was all together, the individual lights were still pretty visible, and I wanted to try to diffuse it more. So I took some hot glue and applied it liberally, just kind of all over the ball of light. I think it did a pretty good job. If you look directly at it, you can still see the individual lights, but as the overall prop itself, I think it did a good job. The last piece that I was working on as far as paint was kind of the power chamber where the power crystal was, whatever it was called in the show. So I was trying to give it kind of a glowing effect. So I laid down some blue and then gave it a little bit of white highlights to the kind of sphere itself. And then I went through and gave it kind of a glowing circle around the sphere to again just kind of give it the appearance that it was glowing. Once I had the paint down the way that I wanted to give it kind of a shiny look to almost look like there was a clear cover on this. So I used some 2-part epoxy to it to paint over top of it to give it that appearance. It actually worked out pretty good. Then at that point, it was ready for a sealer. So I used a satin sealer over everything. I did tape off that power sphere area that I had just used the epoxy on, and then just went around with a satin sealer to give it a nice look. I love putting a sealer on before I do this part because it almost creates like a save point. So that then if I'm unhappy with the look of the wash, that it makes it really easy to go back and clean everything up and kind of start over if I need to. But I took an oil black and mixed it with some mineral spirit paint thinner, and just went through and just did my thing, just covered everything. Any nooks and crannies that I felt like would get kind of grimy and be hard to clean, and just kind of covered the whole thing, cleaned it up, made it look nice and old. Once I cleaned up all the oil wash, this bad boy was ready for battle.
I've been trying to breathe underwater. I've been trying to hide 'cause I'm scared. Confused.